All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to PCR's March Tips and Virtual Transition Times meeting. My name is Melissa Wyman, and I am PCR's Respite Care and Community Engagement Director. I will be your moderator this evening, so please feel free to send any questions or comments in the chat box below. We are so excited to be collaborating with Montgomery County Public Schools MCPS Transition Service Units to provide an enhanced transition times program for transitioning youth, their families, and caregivers. We are delighted to offer this presentation with American Sign Language simultaneous interpretation. We will also be offering this presentation with Spanish simultaneous interpretation. So to access the services in Spanish, at the bottom of your screen, select interpretation. Select Spanish for the Spanish interpretation. Mute original audio if you only want to hear one language. The English and Spanish language versions will be archived on the PCR website Transition Times page. Just some Zoom tip reminders. We are using the webinar platform. We will wait for questions at the end of the presentation, but feel free to submit any of your questions in the chat box below. Also, click Show Captions to see the captions for the webinar. You must select the speaking language you would like to show. Lastly, for funding needs, it is very important to receive feedback from our attendees. Please answer the one question poll by the end of the webinar. I will put it in the chat box. Thank you for your help and feedback. Tonight, we are excited to have Rebecca Grayson, Disability Program Coordinator from Housing Opportunities Commission. Rebecca?
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Hello,
my name is Rebecca Grayson. I have been at HOC for 17 years now. I am the Disability Program Coordinator. I used to work out of the Lake Forest office with people with disabilities before I was promoted into my current position about a year ago. For a lot of folks, they knew Susan Smith, and I took over her position when she retired. So I was asked to speak about housing today. So this is my information so that you have it. I want to briefly mention that HOC is probably the largest housing organization in the county, but we are not the only housing opportunity for folks with disability in the county. There are group homes that are provided by different mental health providers. DDA has housing, the county has housing, homeless services has housing. So there are a wide variety of options. HOC is just the largest in terms of portability, which means that you can take a subsidy and move it somewhere else in the country. And so a lot of folks like that aspect of what the Housing Choice Voucher or the Section 8 program is and why they want to join it. Okay, so next slide, please. So if you go to www.hocmc.org, you will see links to our waitlist, and you can apply anytime after the age of 18. Our income guidelines go from 0 all the way up to about $150,000 for families of more than 4 or 5 people. We have low-income housing, which most people recognize, but we also have middle-income housing, and that is basically $1 over the voucher amount, which I'll get to later in the slides. And that goes up to about $150,000 for families that have larger numbers of people in their family. When you go to our wait list, you can request to be put on specific lists, like the Housing Choice Voucher, or you can leave it kind of everything. You could check everything. And if you don't qualify because it's a senior property, you won't be picked for it. But you don't have to know if your income qualifies you for the voucher program or the middle income program. So you just put your income in and we will select you based off what your income qualifies you for in terms of housing. So here I say you can apply for the voucher program. You could apply for a project-based voucher or other housing, for example, our senior properties, all in one spot. So next slide, please. So people often talk about the moderately priced dwelling units or MPDUs. These are not our units. HOC does have our own kind of units that are like MPDUs, but MPDUs are actually through the county and the state. Most of them are done by DHCA, and so they're not affiliated with us. A lot of our voucher folks use their voucher in MPDUs, and I can get into depth about that later. But these are different programs, again, than the HOC program. You would not apply for HOC if you want an MPDU, which has a higher income bracket, right? So you have to make $1 more than the voucher amount and up to the, again, $150,000. And there are other types of housing, like in-house Section 8 apartment buildings within the county. And so they are also not run by us. So they have their own wait lists, and you'd have to contact the county, which might have some of the programs and the lists of these buildings, or you can contact the buildings directly about how to gain access to their wait lists. Because I know that historically they've had really long wait lists for like in-house Section 8 programs. Next slide, please. So these are the voucher amounts when I was talking about how much the income guideline is. For a family of one, you cannot make over $49,850. And again, it goes up to 8, which is 93,950. When we're talking about the MPDU, or when we're talking about tax credit units within HOC, that's that 49,851 would qualify you for those programs. And again, it goes up to about $150,000 for larger family size units. Okay, next slide, please. So when you get selected for the voucher program, you have to report all of your income. So the income that is included in the voucher program would be wages, Social Security income, retirement or pension, child support or alimony, unemployment, or regular recurring payments. For example, we have parents that pay their child some money every month. We do count those. If it's a one-time payment, then we don't count them. So we have had people get a payment from a parent due to, any kind of situation, and we don't count the one time. We want to know about it, but we're not going to count it as income. You must report assets, which are checking account, savings account, money market, IRA, stocks, bonds, annuities. But of course, some folks have the disability accounts. We would not count those against our tenant because we understand that those are protected accounts. The only reason we really check about checking or savings is interest, because an interest in an account is calculated. So if somebody, for example, I had somebody who was hit by a car and got an allotment from the lawsuit, and she put it into CDs. Her SSI was low, as we all know, but her CDs accrued about $300 a month at one point. And we counted $100 of that toward her rent. And she couldn't afford the CD payment and her SSI because she wasn't taking the money out. And so ultimately she had to decide that she was going to give the money away to her family because it was too much for her to try to pay the $100 on top of her regular rent from her SSI money. So it can get kind of complicated. Right now in our voucher program, in order to qualify, you have to live and or work in Montgomery County. And when we exhaust our folks here, we will open it to the general population of people. When you are on our wait list, it is done by the number. It used to be a random selection, but we stopped that with our newest waitlist program. And so we're actually calling people by the time, by the number that they put their application in. Generally speaking, from the time of application, you get chosen between 6 and 7 years afterwards right now, because we have so many people on our wait list. We also spend an exorbitant amount of time trying to track people down when they get picked. And so that takes a lot of time for us. So we encourage everybody, if you have a change of address or phone number, or please put a backup contact in your application. It can be a doctor, it can be a therapist, it can be anybody that if we can't reach you, we can contact them, because we want to make sure that you get your shot at trying to get into the program at the time. Okay, next slide, please. You may report any medical expense or disability expense within the last 12 months when you are doing your recertification every year. And when you come into the program too, although most people aren't ready for that, so they don't have all the receipts at the time. But I want people to know every year, if you have a disability expense, if you pay for eyeglasses or you get dental work done or your prescriptions from the pharmacy, we will take the printout. We need to show proof of payment. So the cash check, or from your bank statement, or if people use their debit card, they can print out their debit statements and they can highlight what they paid for. You can get statements from your doctor's offices. If you take over-the-counter medication, we ask that you get a letter from the doctor stating why it's medically necessary for you to take, like, vitamin C or vitamin D. And then we would use those. And so when you buy it, save your receipts, put them in a shoebox, and then when your recertification comes, we will we'll accept all the receipts that you have for all of your medical. It's not dollar for dollar, but it's a percentage off your rent. And so it makes a difference because your rent will come down depending on the amount of money. So if you're paying for a supplement program, for example, for health insurance, and you pay $200 a month for that, that's part of your medical expenses. And you can ask for your rent to come down based off of that. One of the other things that most people don't know is service and therapy animals are medical expenses, which means that any expense related to the animal is a medical expense. If you buy a dog a bed or treats, or take them to the vet, or get them shots, or you have to buy them toys, all of those things, their food, leashes, the cages, because we have people that have rats and birds, and all of them, they're medical expenses. And so you can save the receipts, and every year you can hand them in. And again, it will lower your rent. It's not dollar for dollar, but it does make a big difference with people who pay more than $1 for prescriptions every month. Okay, next slide, please. So generally speaking, in the voucher program, the head of household gets 1 bedroom unless they are married, and then the 2 people share a bedroom. After that, anybody else has to share a bedroom. It doesn't matter the sex or the gender or the age of the individuals in the room, they have to share. Now, if you have somebody with a disability, like a child, for example, and they can't share their bedroom with a sibling because of their disability, you can request a reasonable accommodation so that they can have their own bedroom. And there's specific paperwork to have that done, so that they can, and the doctor would fill it out and say why they need their own bedroom, and then they could have their own bedroom because of their medical situation. We also have situations where people need live-in aids. HUD allows you to request a reasonable accommodation for a live-in aid. It can be anybody. We can't tell you who it can be and who it can't be. They don't have to be certified. It can be family member or friend. We've had people who have their ex-partners move in with them, and they get their own bedroom as a live-in aid, and their income is not counted. So we ask you what your income is when you come in the program, and then we never ask about it again because it's not a part of the rent structure. The rent would be based off of the household income, and it does not include the live-in aid. So generally speaking, it's 2 per bedroom, but there are exclusions. There are reasonable accommodations that can change that. Okay, next slide, please. So one of the major things that people don't understand within the voucher program and the tax credit programs and our project-based voucher programs is you have to pay your utilities to the building separately. They're not included. HUD talks a lot about the utilities when they're doing the rent amounts when you're moving into a new unit, but we don't pay them unless the utilities are included. With a voucher program, you use a certain amount of money toward an apartment. And so the apartment establishes the guidelines, right? So they say you have to pay for rent, and you have to pay for electric, and you have to pay for water, and you have to pay these amenity fees, and you would be responsible for that. And so whatever they stipulate will be on top of what HOC tells you you have to pay for rent. So we have folks that have moved into a building where they have to pay for parking, and they're going to have to pay for parking because we do not include it in our rent. If utilities are separate, you have to pay them to the property. You have to pay the parking to the property. If they have pet fees, you have to pay the pet fee. But if it's a service or a therapy animal, you request the reasonable accommodation through the property, and those pet fees, of course, go away because the medical animal is not a pet. So those fees do not apply. But our payment is only for rent, so that everything else in the property, and these new buildings have all these different little things now. You have to pay for pest, you have to pay for this, and our stuff does not include that. It's just the rent. So be careful when you're looking for properties. The older ones don't do this, but the new ones are nickel and diming everybody for all of these little fees. So be careful when you're looking for something. We have new payment standards, and the payment standards are based on zip codes. So if you live in Potomac, for example, it's going to have a higher payment standard, which means the amount of money that HUD is paying a landlord than Tacoma Park, for example. Tacoma Park, I know, has a less expensive payment standard. So because there was this huge shift to cover places like Chevy Chase, Bethesda, and Potomac, some of the other payment standards did come down. So we give you a sheet. I did not include it here, but if you guys want it, you can certainly ask me for it and I'll provide it, no problem. But it shows the payment standards as of right now for all of the zip codes. So when you're going out and you have a 2-bedroom and you're trying to move to Germantown, and let's say you want to move to 20874, it would tell you this is the max amount of rent that you can move into, and it does not include utilities. So what I tell families is if utilities are not included in the rent, take off $100 per bedroom. So if the voucher payment says you can get a 2-bedroom for $1,500 and you have to pay electric, try to find something under $1,400. because otherwise it might not pass rent reasonable, which is a standard that they have to run when we go, when they're running the the apartment, because we have to look at all these things. Is the washer and dryer included? Do they have balconies? Is it a walk up? Is it an elevator build? It all changes. So when they run this and it's a really high rent, it's going to be an issue if the individual has to pay utilities on top of the rent. Okay, next slide, please. So as I was saying, the voucher is transferable. And you can take it anywhere in the United States and Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the US Virgin Islands. You would ask, if you're one of our voucher folks, you ask to relocate first. The normal relocation process. Once you get your new piece of paper saying, yes, you can relocate, you fill out a form saying, I would like to move, and you will give all the information for where you would like to go. I have a lot of clients that will ask me, where do I go in Texas? I don't know. And I don't know anything about Texas. So I advise people to educate themselves, not only about where they want to go in terms of housing, but what services they're going to or not going to get in those states, right? Because food stamps radically changes state to state. Medicaid income, there were states that didn't buy into the higher Medicaid amounts. So that matters if you're going to go somewhere. Do you have family? Do you have things like DDA? Because that's not going to transfer, right? You'd have to go back on the wait list in another state. So we try to go over all the things with our households that we're working with to talk to them about if they're going to relocate, are they going to do it safely? Do they have all the resources? We cannot pay to help you move to another state. There are no funds. The other state might help you, but we are not going to. And DHHS has very strict guidelines about that. If you're moving with a voucher out of our area, we're not doing it. So once you do this, then basically you kind of are on your own in a space where we can try to help you, but we don't exactly know where you're going. So we can't help you kind of land and talk to the housing authority and all that. So, right now, there's a whole thing about citizenship, but we do accept folks that are non-citizens, but they cannot be the head of household. They can be a family member. If they are a family member, there is amount of money that HUD makes the family pay because that person is not a citizen. I do not know the amount because I'm not the specialist, but I could get that amount of money if you need the information. If you are a Montgomery County resident, when you're coming into the program, we will allow you to move to another jurisdiction as soon as you come into our program. So if you get picked for the voucher and you want to move to Florida, you could do it right away. But if you're not a resident, HUD will not allow us to move you right away. You would have to you'd have to create residency here for a year, and then you could conversely move to another jurisdiction. Next slide, please. So I wanted to say that Montgomery County has some very serious protections for people with the voucher program, and also for the project-based voucher. Basically, in Montgomery County, there are laws that protect source of income, which means that a landlord is not allowed to discriminate against somebody who gets money that is less than the amount that they are asking for. When you're going out to rent an apartment, a landlord will say, in order to rent this unit, you have to be making $45,000 a year. But if the voucher covers the amount of rent, they cannot demand this $45,000. That has to go out the window. the voucher covers the amount of rent again, source of income is the class of laws that protect them from having to show this source of income that the buildings are requiring. It does not exist in most of the country. In most of the country, landlords can discriminate against the voucher and say that they don't take this stuff here and you have to move along. But here and PG and some other counties in Maryland, they're very good and they protect folks from discriminating against our folks when they have the voucher. It is illegal to refuse to make accommodations for people with disabilities, to inform people that a unit is not available when it is. They can't advertise to preferred groups. But the big thing that we have all the time are credit issues. So we have a lot of folks with credit problems, and we will start to educate them about getting better credit because landlords can refuse to rent to you based off of that. That is the one thing that the Office of Landlord and Tenant Affairs has not stopped in terms of blocking somebody from renting, right? So if you have 500 as a credit score, a landlord can refuse to allow you to move into that unit. We have had landlords attempt to block somebody for credit scores of 700 because they didn't want to rent to the voucher person. And with the Office of Landlord and Tenant and Legal Aid, we've been able to stop some of the behavior. But do let us know if you come across landlords that you know it's a voucher issue, but they're claiming other things. Let us know because we will have conversations with them, as will the county, because they're not supposed to discriminate if they have a voucher. Okay, next slide, please. So what other housing outside of the voucher program? So I've talked about the project-based vouchers. So what are they? Well, project-based vouchers are essentially the same income guidelines as a housing choice voucher. You still pay the same amount, it's 30 or 40% of your income toward rent, but we own the unit. HOC has an agreement with the county where we are the first available buyers of new dwelling units when so many have been made. So after, I don't know if it's 15, we are allowed to purchase some of them. And we do, and they are scattered all over the county. And we call them scattered site units. They're tax credit units, they're opportunity units. Some people consider them kind of MPDU units. It's like that, where normally people would be paying higher rents, but because we've turned them into project-based vouchers, we pay 2/3 of the rent, and the person pays, 30% of their money toward the rent. Can you move with this one? You can't. However, after a year of being with the program, the project-based voucher, you can come to HOC and request to have it transferred to a housing choice voucher. It will not be immediate. You'll go on a wait list, but you will eventually get a housing choice voucher. And sometimes this is faster than waiting through the wait list. We have people who have refused a project-based voucher because they're holding out for the housing choice voucher. But we tell them, take the project-based voucher because in a year you can request the housing choice voucher and maybe within a year you'll get one. And because it's our unit, we'll let you move when you get the housing choice voucher out of the project-based. We also have the tax credit, which I mentioned, that opportunity housing, which are these higher income rents. But what we do is because it's our housing, the rents are significantly less than market value. So around it, the unit might be going for $2,000, but for us, with somebody making $67,000, for example, they might only pay $600 a month for rent. So we have families that get on this that are working families, but they can't afford market rent. We also have college kids, right? that are just starting out, that are making above the payment standard, but trying to find an apartment that is reasonable is really hard. And so they'll go on our wait list, and those get pulled much faster because those rents don't change. The only thing about those is that it's not income based. So if you lose your amount of money, you will eventually get the notice that you have to go because we don't lower the rent based off of the income. In terms of other housing options, we have case management and income-based units through the county. These families are coming out of the homeless system. Some are in a McKinney program. We have supported housing programs. We have other things that are tied with the Department of Disabilities through the state of Maryland. So we have a lot of different partnership programs. There are all sorts of little things that people can get connected to through the county. They get referred through the county, through the homeless system, and then eventually they become part of our program when we do the intake and accept them in our program. They're usually low-income people with disabilities. Most often people think supportive housing, they think of mental health issues, but it's not necessarily true. We have quite a few people with physical disabilities in that program, and they get case management, which is really hard to come by sometimes with people with physical disabilities. And then kind of the last thing we offer, our home ownership program. We have a incentive that goes along with the county program, the MPD home ownership program. We have the first time, if you need closing cost assistance, we help with mortgage payment assistance. So we have different programs for people who are looking to go into the home ownership program. And we work very closely, obviously, with the county and their program. Okay, next slide, please. So these are office locations. I'm based out of the headquarters office in Kensington. The Silver Spring Customer Service Center is in downtown Silver Spring. The Durwood office is new. This used to be the Lake Forest office, which closed and has moved to the Laureate, which is a building that we built. And our office is now located on the side of that building. And we also have East Deer Park. And East Deer Park is where our maintenance and some other programs are based out of. And our main office number is at the bottom there. Okay, next slide, please. And I guess we get to the questions.
Melissa, do you want me to read the questions that I've,
Yeah, I have them too.
whoops, I put them in a document. How did you want to do this, Melissa?
Why don't we just go ahead, Margie, and start reading them, or I can
Okay.
read them.
Okay. Is it the child's income or the parents'?
It's any of the income. So if both get income, we're going to count both. If a parent is a representative payee for a child, we count it as income, because if it's Social Security, if it's a recurring payment, we will count it.
Okay. My son is 25 and looking for a job. He currently lives with us, but is looking to move into his own place after getting a job. How will this income be evaluated for housing purposes? How will his income be evaluated for housing purposes?
So if he comes into the program before he gets the job, I'll just say this first. So we have a program that where the first year, if you are a person with a disability and you are going back to work, we do not count your income. You have to tell the specialist, I would like this program where you do not count my income for the first year. And if you need help with it, you can contact me and I can go over it with you and we can talk to your specialist about it. But the first year, they don't count your income. And then the second year, they count 50% of what your income would be. I guess I should say that, right? And so it would be 50% of your rent. And then it would be the third year, it's your actual amount. So we kind of gradually increase it to what you would pay normally with your new income. The big thing people ask me when they start working is the SSI stuff. And so we can go over that with somebody because it will change benefit information when they start working. But if you come into the program, their income is counted. So it's the bigger number. We take it before taxes and like health insurance is taken out. And that would be 30% of whatever their money is that we would require for them to pay monthly as their rent.
Do you report ABLE account balances? I'm not sure what that
So if their
means,
name is
but
on it, I would, but we're not going to count it unless money is coming directly to the resident in terms of cash.
okay.
Okay, the next question is how many years is somebody typically on the waiting list?
So it's generally now I'm hearing about 6 to 7 years, I would say, from the time they put their application online. And no, every year we're going to send you an email and ask you to update it, which means you just go and check, make sure that it looks good, and then save it, and then you're good for another year. But it's about 6 years.
Okay. My daughter is on the wait list for Rockville Housing Choice Voucher Program. She had to recently recertify. Is this part of this program you're discussing?
So they are a separate housing authority, believe it or not. Rockville Housing Enterprises is the only other housing authority in our county, and they're their own individual housing authority. If your daughter wanted to move into Tacoma Park, for example, or Chevy Chase, she would then request to relocate with Rockville to us, and then she would be part of us. And it was the same program. It's just that the city of Rockville has its own jurisdiction over its downtown area. So we tell our folks, if the signs are blue, it's the city. And if they're green, it's the county. And it's not perfect, but it's pretty good because we have people who are looking for housing also in the city. And you can't do HOC in the city of Rockville.
Okay, thank you. Is there a link to the paperwork for requesting a reasonable accommodation?
No, but I can provide it and maybe they can send it out afterwards. Sure. Because you know what? I'll just send you the form. No problem.
Okay. Where can we find out how much the voucher is for a zip code?
So I can send you the latest sheet every year. And I don't exactly know when because it changes every year, but HUD makes a recommendation about what the payment standards should be for all the jurisdictions. And then your own housing authority can add to it or not. We always add to it, right? So I don't know exactly when they come out, they change, but I can provide one of those sheets so you generally speaking know how much it is in the zip codes. And then it's a big grid and you would find the zip code on the left and kind of go over to the bedroom size. And that will tell you the amount, the max amount of money that we're willing to pay for a landlord. But that is if all utilities are included. So if you're going to move into a 2-bedroom unit and it's $1,500, it's going to be more than that. But if it's $1,500 and you have to pay gas and electric, come down $200 from that because it won't pass. It'll be too much. I hope I'm explaining that properly.
Yes, thank you. Is a number on the waiting list in the 700s housing choice voucher program going to take several more years to be realistic?
Honestly, I don't know. And with our current climate, I can't even tell you. Uh, we're fully funded at the moment. We hope to stay that way. But I just don't know how fast they're moving down the list. I would hope within a year or two at 700, but I don't know.
Thank you. How do we get a housing voucher and how much do we have to pay?
So in order to get on the housing choice voucher, you have to apply to our wait list. I think they'll send out the presentation. So our wait list information is on my presentation. And you would apply there. And you're going to put down the income that you have. So it depends on how much money and what program you're going to be in. If you're going to be in the voucher program, we're going to look at whatever your income guideline is when you come into the program. So if you're getting SSI, for example, they'll use 30% of that. It comes to about 300. Then we have a little deduction for people with disabilities, which is $400 off the rent. And then if you hand in medical deductions, it might bring it down even more. So it really depends. But generally it's between 30 and 40% of your money. And why is it 40 sometimes? Because people want the really expensive units and they want to go to the tippy top of our payment standard. And then that becomes 40% of your money toward rent. So we always tell folks, when I say to take off this money off the rent, try to have it on the cheaper side if you can, because you only pay 30% versus 40% of your money toward rent.
Please explain the mainstream housing voucher. What is the criteria for risk of homelessness? Is a group home considered an institution?
So I was just having this conversation at the commission. So I think that you could make the argument that it is absolutely, so the mainstream disabled vouchers are specific vouchers from HUD to move people up from the homeless world, right? So I think the philosophy is that people get trapped in the shelter system. And so what HUD is trying to do is offer housing, a permanent housing, so that the people that are in transitional housing and shelter systems can kind of come out of that situation so more people can come in, right? And so we don't get a lot of them. We have to request them. We have to do grant funding for them. They don't come out very often. When we have gotten them, we've gotten like 80, and that's it. And so on our wait list, we ask you, are you homeless? Are you in a situation where you are at risk of homeless? At risk of homeless means now you have an eviction notice. You have a letter from a landlord telling you that they're going to be going through the eviction process. It could be a domestic violence sexual assault situation, which you need documentation about that, and you can't stay in that house because of safety issues, things like that. But there is one also, which is the segregated setting. And a group home is, to me, a segregated setting. So yes, that would qualify them for that mainstream disabled if they got it. You would have to get documentation about the person being in a group home. Or if they are in a rehab facility, this is also one of the things we've been trying to get people to get housing out of rehabs, because a lot of folks with disabilities get trapped. They have nowhere to go after an accident and they get Social Security, they can't afford the rent. So we're trying to pull people out of those situations in the rehabs and the nursing homes and get them in housing. So that's also another way of segregated setting where they would qualify for that. But not all of the disabled vouchers are mainstream disabled. And so every single one of these has specific criteria. And so some of the ones historically have included segregated, but some of them aren't. So because some are specifically designed to pull people from the homeless world. And so if they don't qualify as homeless, they have to wait for another voucher to get chosen.
Is the mainstream voucher program part of this under the Rockville Housing Portal?
So Rockville Housing has its own housing. So I don't know how they do it. Mainstream is not the same as the mainstream program in Rockville.
Right.
Mainstream was the name of vouchers that came out for the first time, oh, maybe 10 years ago now. And they were specifically to try to, again, pull people out of the homeless system, pull people out of segregated settings, people with disabilities to get them housed. They were specific. Then we have the non-elderly disabled housing vouchers also, where you can't be over 62, and you have to have a disability, and you have to be obviously income-based, right? In order to get the housing. So we have different things. If somebody vacates one of those, the voucher, for example, right? We have to rehouse somebody with the same issue specifically, right? So if we had somebody who came from the segregated setting or the homeless system, we have to then go and try to find somebody with the same background to put somebody else in that unit.
Does this apply to those who live in other towns like Clarksburg or Germantown?
Yes, so Montgomery County is everything but the city of Rockville. Tacoma Park is ours, Germantown is ours, Damascus, Boyd's, anything that's within Montgomery County falls under us.
Okay. What buildings are the project-based vouchers and how do you sign up for that?
So the project-based voucher, it's the same as the housing choice voucher. It's just within the application, you would check it, right? Some of our folks just want the housing choice voucher, but I suggest checking everything because you don't know and you might get something. But so when we're talking about project-based units, the project-based vouchers are for the low-income folks. They are scattered sites. So when they get picked for it through our wait list, we offer the units. We will give you 2 options to look at before we put you down further on the list, right? So you would be offered, and you say in your application, I want to live in Germantown or I want to live in Silver Spring. So we're not calling you for an area you're not interested in, right? So you go and you would see that unit, and if you like the unit, you can take it. And if you say, well, it's not close to a bus, or I need something close to my doctor, you can wait for another call, right? For another unit. We also have what we call kind of our scattered sites. And these are the ones that you have to have income higher than the voucher amount to qualify for those. So I'm not sure which one, but those you're also on our wait list. We would pull you and you would make like 62,000, for example. And we would say, we have this unit. It's a 3-bedroom in Boyd's, right? For example, and the rent is $700. And if you like it, you can take it.
My son lives in a group home in Montgomery County. How does he establish proof of residency as he does not pay any bills at his group home? And all official correspondence from the government agencies comes to my address because I am his guardian.
Well, the group home can write a letter stating that he's been living there since when. And anybody will take that. We accept letters from shelters that say so-and-so comes by or so-and-so stayed here. We'll take letters from soup kitchens. What I tell people, and it's the most difficult, are couch surfers. A couch can't write you a letter, and I can't take the letter from your friend. And so that's the hardest. But if they touch places in the homeless world, they'll write a letter. And the group home should be able to write a letter saying that they've been there since X, right? And then we'll take that.
Okay, I'm going to pick them up from here. And let me see, there are a lot of people putting questions in the chat. We have a lot. We probably will not get through them all at this point. So I think that we probably maxed out the chat right now. The next one is this only available for adults with disabilities?
No, so the voucher program is available for anybody with any income that is either low or moderate, right? Anybody, so I talk specifically about people with disabilities because that's my specialty. But the housing choice voucher is for anybody that makes under our income guidelines. And again, it's going to be part of that PowerPoint. If you make under that, you can apply for our housing. We have lots of people in our voucher program that do not have a disability.
Do you coordinate with Jubilee?
Yes, specifically around individuals. We don't generally do big group things. But yes, we've worked with Jubilee a lot around specific residents.
How can landlords learn about group homes?
I'm not for what is there specific, because we don't do group homes. So I don't, what is
Right.
it that you're looking for in terms of the group home?
That may have to be a question that somebody reaches out directly.
So let me give you my info. Yeah, just very quickly. My number is 240-627-9580. If you have specific questions about somebody in the voucher program or how to apply, give me a call. And I'll go over things with you. I'll answer your landlord question. We just don't do group homes, but I'll try to answer your question.
Okay. Sorry, I keep losing them as people put more questions in.
My email is in the PowerPoint you guys will get.
Yeah. It is, yes.
I saw the
Yes.
question.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I've lost
No,
my
yeah.
questions here.
Okay.
The next one I think you've answered. It's about, do reportable assets include able or special needs trusts?
So no, no, not unless they're getting a dollar amount from a family as disposable income, meaning you're cutting them a check every month for $50 to do something. Then yes, we might count that as income. But the actual big account, no, we wouldn't. And we wouldn't touch the interest on that account because it's a special account. But we do have parents that give their children an allotment every month, and we do that. We will take rent from that.
If the wait list is long, do you recommend putting a high school child on the wait list?
So they have to be 18 to be on the list. But yes, absolutely. Once they turn 18, yeah.
Okay, I'm joining the presentation late, so maybe you have already addressed this. My daughter has a voucher. There's a lot of turnover at HOC.
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost it. If people can just stop putting in the chat for a moment, that'd be helpful. I didn't write these, I just have them here.
Yeah.
I'm reading off the chat.
Do you want me to continue, Patricia?
Okay, yeah, because people are writing in the chat and I just keep losing it because I'm reading.
Okay, okay,
Because it
so
moved,
there's a lot
it
of
moved
turnover.
out, yeah.
It's challenging to get in touch via email and phone with the housing specialist. We've had to go to the Derwood office to get answers to our questions, suggestions.
So if the person has a disability, you can contact my colleague Ariel. I would suggest giving me a call. You can send me an email when you get my information and I'll connect you. I also have a coworker out of the Silver Spring office. we have some issues with communication. So we are trying to assist. So that's part of our job description. So we will try to help navigate whatever the questions are for you guys so that we get them from the specialist.
Okay, and if you can also send me the list of vouchers amounts for the jurisdictions, and I can send it out and post it so that way we have that information. And also, if you can share any information about the home buying program and provide a website or other resources we can inquire with.
Sure.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so I have time for about a few more. But so if my name was drawn from the wait list and after applying, I was denied or did not accept it, do you stay on the waiting list for other vouchers like the housing choice?
Yes. So right now, I understand that some people are being pulled for the homeless folks. And if you were not homeless, you're being denied. But then they're telling me that actually fairly quickly, people have been chosen for a regular voucher. So it's good news for you. Hopefully you'll hear about a regular voucher soon.
So if you have personal questions, because I know there's a few personal questions, feel free. Can they reach out to you?
Yeah. They can call me, they can email me. It's on the little presentation. So you guys will get it.
Okay, perfect. And I will also be sending a follow-up email that will have the PowerPoint presentation as well. And I will make sure to highlight your email, because do you have a email that works?
Yeah.
A good email? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
I will send out your email and phone number as well.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of the questions, but please feel free to reach out to Rebecca so she can answer your questions. Looking ahead, our virtual transition times meeting will be held once a month from now until June. All meetings will continue to be archived with simultaneous ASL and Spanish and archived on the PCR website. Please join us on Wednesday, April 2nd at 6:30 for this month's program, Maryland Division of Rehabilitation Services, Doors, and Social Security. The Doors presentation will feature Valerie Pigeon, Transition Rehabilitation Specialist for Montgomery County. The presentation will explain all of the DOORS programs and services to help individuals get jobs in the community. And the Social Security presentation will feature Michael Dalto, High Note Consulting LLC. Come learn about eligibility for SSI and SSDI. And please, if you have not filled out the survey, please do. Thank you again, and we hope to see everyone next month.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye.
Rebecca.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Lisa.
Right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Night.
Good night.